guys, finally got the chassis home last night. Super excited about it. Couldn't wait to start getting working. But I thought I'd show you what we've got here so far, what we still need to do, and kind of the first problem we encountered. So starting off right here at the corner, we got the brakes, or the wheel off, so you can see the brakes. Willwood 6 pistons with the mechanical parking brakes. The matching, I believe these are 13-inch, like 12.9-inch rotors with aluminum hats. Charlie's suspension setup, this is kind of his deal that he works on the Lamborghini replicas and all sorts of stuff in this kind of realm. But it's the dual Viking adjustable coilovers with his A-arms. The A-arms are super tight with these tires. He's never had somebody run so wide. These are 355s. So they fit right now, but it's going to be really close once we actually put this rear clamshell on. We might have to adjust these wheels in a hair. I think we're going to be okay, but it's going to be really pushing it. Next, motor. We got that hanging in. This is an LS. Every chassis Charlie's ever built for this type of stuff uses a small block Chevy. So we ran into our first issue, right? So typically he uses a transmission mount plate here. He uses a motor mount plate that mounts up front. And when we went to put the motor in, this is just kind of hanging here. The accessories don't actually clear this bracket. So I already spoke with Charlie, easy fix. Basically, we're going to cut this here, turn this box into an L. We're going to do the same thing down low. We're going to cut this here, cut this down low, and then have an L. Then we're going to add another bracing. We're going to wait to put the motor in, and then Charlie's going to run some mock-ups on the computer to see whether it makes more sense to go slightly further back to add another one or slightly further forward. But losing this box structure, I really just wanted to make sure that we have the rigidity that it needs. So we're going to be working on that as soon as I get this cut and as soon as the motor's in the car, we can kind of tell where the weight's going to be. This is actually sitting really close with the C6 mounts that I'm using. It is slightly too low to go direct mounted, so I'm going to either have to order a bushing or build a piece out of like a billet, drill a hole in it to mount the mounts. Otherwise, if you don't do that, the oil pan, even with the dry sump, it's almost as deep as the wet sump, but it just hangs ever so slightly below the lower frame rails. But what we are in really good shape for, and I was super excited about this, is the placement of the transaxle. When you start talking about drive shaft angles going through multiple shocks, it can get kind of complicated. But when we actually ran this through to run it straight, we're probably going to be 1 inch canted. So it's going to be almost perfect, dead on straight. Couldn't be more excited about that. The most challenging thing that I can see right now is where I'm going to put everything. So dual turbos back here, intercooler, air to water setup. Transmission needs a thermostat controlled cooler. Dry sump oil tank. We're going to be fitting 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack. Might have to have some really small and great ideas, so definitely going to be asking for some suggestions throughout this build. Charlie, the chassis looks fantastic. I mean, we're still working on a few little pieces. First one I'm sure you'll probably notice if you're safety conscious is there's no roll bar in here. That's coming, just haven't got to it yet. But he's got his name all laser engraved up here, or I'm sorry, he's got it CNC routed up here. The VIN numbers built right into the chassis. Great setup. Everything's looking really nice back here. Okay, so we did say that we're going to have to add this roll bar. There's also a few other little changes that we're going to do. I am also going to be adding a front hoop here that follows the windshield frame. I just don't like the idea in a car that the roof is 39 inches. You hit something from head on and you hit them in the rear end. You go right up underneath a truck and you get decapitated. So we're going to have a front roll hoop. We're going to have a center brace right where the T-top would go, and then we're going to have the mounts on the bottom here, just like the original, but for 4-point harnesses. We're also contemplating a few other little twerks here. The biggest one probably to mention that we are definitely going to do is aluminum side pods. So with the return right here, this is for the AC and the heat for the blower motor, we're actually going to mount that in the pod, and we need to modify it a little bit, and it's just easier to make them out of aluminum. Then you don't have the rock chips, you don't have anything coming up cracking it. Just make it out of aluminum, do it once, do it right, and be done with it. Also have some other pretty interesting stuff in here. This is the shifter that Charlie uses in all of his cars. It looks like it will work with the Graziano. Might have to figure out some hardware, but it's looking like it's going to work just fine. Same thing with the emergency brake or parking brake, and then coming through the cables just come right out through this tunnel. Very slick setup, very thin. I can tell you right now that I will probably have the only Manta ever made or the only McLaren ever made with cup holders. It's going to be pretty sweet. Looking forward to that. The steering column here slides through. It looks like it'll be really tight with the pedals, but what you don't realize in this is it's actually going to stay really high. There's another joint that's not in this car right now. The one change in this area that I'm going to make is, being a prototype, This corner just sticks out a little bit too far. I was hitting this every time I tried to push the clutch pedal riding my shoe. So there is space. We're basically gonna knock this out just a little bit. I might actually also cheat this pedal over about a ½ inch just to give me a little more clearance. But I'm telling you, the biggest change for this car is size. I'm 6'1", 195 pounds. I straight up did not fit in the original. I'm not a large guy, but I'm definitely not a small guy. The space I have in here compared to the original, I wish I had the other tub sitting next to me, it's incredible. That's worth the money alone. I can easily drive this car, and I could have a passenger. The passenger doesn't have quite as much added room because of the center console, but they do have about 2 inches extra hip room, and your legs are not crammed. In the original, you're sitting here like this, guys. I'm not kidding. It really is like this. So when you can add, now I'm sitting in here like this, and the headroom, Charlie also got me an extra 1 inch of headroom. So now you can see if I'm sitting in kind of the regular position, the dash will be right here with the wheel here. I actually can clear my head here. If I wanted to sit further straight up, I could even sit straight up. So that's phenomenal. Okay. Over here we actually have a unit that's made by Guard Dog. There's a little bit of confusion there. I need the number 2 because this is going to be rock and shaved door handles and electric actuator. So when I push a button, it'll raise up the rear clamshell. Push another button, pop right up my doors. I didn't want to be looking at the exterior handles. I just think it's hacking up the body. Let's keep it nice and clean. And one of the cool things that Charlie has done that I had never seen before is the windshield wiper setup. I was dreading doing this. I thought it was going to be a pain in the ass trying to find a motor, how far is the swing. But this is actually cable driven, so you just get what looks like a 3/8 brake line, and you bend it up, and then you can actually adjust the motor and how it works so that you can adjust exactly how far your throws are both ways, and you can route this literally anywhere you want. You want to twist it like a snake, it works great. So coming up to the front suspension, we've got, these are 285s, so as you can tell here with the A-arms, no issue whatsoever. These are just standard C6 Z06 wheels for mock-up. Probably going to rock the rubber on here until it's gone, and then I'll get a different set of wheels. But everything looks great, ton of clearance here. The 285s might be pushing it for the body. The widest I've heard of somebody running on one of these cars is a 275, but we'll see once we get the front clip mounted. So the steering up here is actually a Mustang 2 Pinto rack, pretty much in all sorts of hot rods. It's actually a pretty good steering rack. It's tight, but it works. AFCO, this is a 4-core radiator. We did have to cut the corners off, weld some little bits there. I'll probably clean that up. We're going to be painting everything black, powder coating and all that. But it does fit. You do have to modify the front clamshell ever so slightly. There's a piece that comes, so the piece that actually comes down like this, the lower actually is designed to go into this channel. And then the vent, so that the air comes up and comes out, you do have to cut out the lip that goes down so it's totally flush. We will be adding a grill in there, and it's not something you're ever going to see from the outside of the car. First day with the chassis, go to work, because I got in late. Go to work in the morning. Can't even come home and work on it. What a bummer, right? But I have a good reason. I actually got some new goodies here. Wanted to show off. So we got dual Gen 5 Hypergate 45 wastegates from TurboSmart. We got the 50 millimeter blow-off race port blow-off valve from TurboSmart as well. And then the Holley solenoid setup to control both of the wastegates. Pretty excited about this. Obviously, going to be having some real fun. We're also going to go pretty high tech with some of our controls. We're going to be running Wheelie Control in a car that only weighs 1,600 to 1,800 pounds wet with 355 tires and big power. You're going to have some issues keeping the front end down, especially in a mid-engine car that doesn't have all that weight up front. So we're going to be running Wheelie Control. Basically, what that does is it uses a little sensor that is permanently mounted in the front end. It will measure the distance to the ground. So hypothetically, call it 4 inches from your frame rail or 5 inches from your frame rail to the ground. You take that 5 inches, say there's 4 inches of suspension travel, so you're at 9 inches and your wheels lift. So what you can do is you can set whatever point you want, say 3 inches off the ground, your tires, 5 inches off, and you just progressively retard the timing for wheelie control. We're also going to be using a 2-step setup for launch control. We're going to be using progressive boost with time. So basically, the longer you have it floored, the more boost it gives it. That'll aid in traction. We're also going to be using boost by gear. So the higher gear you're in, the more boost it applies. Basically, this is all aimed around how can we get the most performance out of the lightest weight cars possible. We're going to be fighting traction. This is going to be on the street quite a bit, occasionally a road race course, but this is mostly a street car. So even if I tune it in, the 700 to 750 wheel horsepower at this ratio, you're talking about 2.1 pounds to 2.4 pounds per horsepower. To give you kind of an idea, it's going to be,
absolutely insane, better than any car you could buy, better than Bugatti, better than Lambo, better than all that. So we need to use some of this technology to actually be able to control and handle this thing. Just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on where that was coming. We should be ordering the turbos here pretty soon. Haven't quite got them yet. I have made a decision, but I'll leave that for another video. Just wanted to give you an update on some of the cool toys we had.